Hi everyone, I'm Let 'em Taters. You can call me Taters. In this video, I'm going to detail a list of changes I would make to Alliance War if I had complete power over the game mode. But before that, I'll explain why I believe Alliance War desperately needs an overhaul. And before that, I'll introduce myself. As some of you are aware, I'm the lead officer in BG3 and 4 Loki. I choose which war defenders all 10 battle group members place and which nodes to put them on. When war begins, I study the entire map and draw up attack assignments. I tell everyone in BG3 which paths to take, which attackers to bring, which attackers to use for each fight, and often give people special instructions or suggestions to ensure they're as prepared as possible. 4 Loki is a very high-functioning war alliance, having placed 3rd overall 3 times, including last season, 4th half a dozen times, and in the master bracket 19 times in 24 seasons. Excluding this season, for which we'll place in Master again. Point being that I have a major stake in the state of Alliance War. Alliance War is the only game mode in MCOC with a human versus human strategy aspect. A human designs a defense with the intent to outsmart another human, for example. Alliance War is sacred. It's important for us to compete with other players in the most direct way possible. In my opinion, it should be at the top of Kabam's in-game priority list. But instead, it's an outdated, repetitive mode. Season 25 is the 7th season of the current map. The previous map lasted 8 seasons, and as Enzo has pointed out in recent war videos, the title for Season 25, Coup de Grace, translates to the final blow, or the culmination. So yeah, we're probably going to get something new next season, but if it's just a new map and some new nodes, the future of Alliance War is as grim as the present. At the top tier of war, Tier 1, which is occupied by roughly the top 30 alliances in the world based on war rating, there are plenty of issues. I'm going to list 5. 1. Attacker rosters continue to develop, and most of them include a huge assortment of meta war attackers at the highest attainable rank, making matchups with hard counters no issue of availability. 2. Nodes are designed with such specificity that inevitably, seasons into a map, certain defenders become clearly the most viable placement options for them, which means you see the same champs on the same nodes, war after war, with little variance, which is just boring. 3. And with the 2 aforementioned points combined, death totals for alliances continue to plummet. Our defense was cleared with only 1 death in a war this season, and with only 2 deaths in another war this season. And that drastically amplifies the pressure on all 30 players in an alliance to not die. And if and when they do, it often amplifies their feeling of disappointment and guilt. 4. The cost of war serves as a compound to all the negative feelings war causes. Deaths suck worse because reviving and healing a rank 3 6-star champion, especially while boosted, eats half your item use allowance. And this also means if a player does die while boosted, they might have to let their boost expire before healing up, which can easily cause time-related issues for their battle group. And lastly, number 5, war doesn't currently feel like a totally even game mode, alliance versus alliance, because of boost disparity. Some players have the means and are willing to buy expensive war boost packs to get the largest boost available, while other players don't or aren't. There's a modest pay-to-win element that, while nowhere near the severity of Alliance Quest, is not present in other competitive video games like Dota or League of Legends. Games in which opposing teams either get 0 options for character enhancement or the exact same options. Those are 5 pain points I personally see in war right now, and they're not equal, but they're things I think are worth finding an improvement for. Some of you might not even consider any of them pain points at all, and if that's the case, that's completely fine. Maybe you'll find you like my suggestions more than the current state of war. Here are 3 changes I would make to Alliance War and which of the 5 pain points they would contribute towards improving, in my opinion. Number 1, introduce attacker bans during defensive placement. Currently, a battle group leader can arrange defenders and set a defensive global. Add an extra option where he or she can select attackers that won't be selectable by the opposing battle group during the attack phase. But what about players with limited rosters who depend on one champ they've invested all of their resources into for war attack? That's a great question. An alliance will only be able to ban a particular champion a maximum of 6 times per season, per battle group. And the number of attacker bans will depend on the opposing alliance's war tier. If your opponent is a Tier 1 alliance, each battle group can choose 2 attackers to ban. If your opponent is in Tier 2 or 3, you can only ban 1 attacker. If they're in Tier 4, you can't ban any. So let's say 4Loki, a Tier 1 alliance, matches a Tier 2 alliance. That's not very fair, right? Nothing worse than getting a lopsided match you know you're highly unlikely to win. Well, the Tier 2 alliance will be able to ban 2 of our attackers per battle group, and we'd only be able to ban 1 of their attackers per battle group. And again, we have a limit of 6 bans per champion per season, per battle group. So if we feel we're at an advantage, perhaps we save a valuable Quake ban for a war we expect to be more competitive. This change directly combats issues 1 through 3 above. It allows defenses to eliminate the hard counters that make their defenders next to hopeless, but requires strategic choices on when to ban certain champs, something that adds more complexity and fun to the war experience. It also forces attack team variance, which combats the redundancy of repeated matchups and again adds another layer of strategy. And it'll definitely cause more deaths, which you might initially think is a negative, but more deaths overall means more enjoyable competition with reduced individual stress. Attacker bans would give Kabam a permanent, constantly evolving answer to war stagnation as new champs, defenders, and attackers are introduced, as opposed to the ticking clock temporary changes of a new war map and new nodes. It would also add another layer of human versus human strategy, which you're going to hear me say quite often in this video, and which encourages more discussions between alliance members and rewards alliances that are able to actually plan a smarter defense instead of copying known methods. Additionally, Kabam could award quote-unquote ban immunity to one class or character tag each season based on the season's theme or to tie in with a monthly quest. For example, Apocalypse is released and gives all the mutants of the Battle Realm ban immunity in Alliance War. That would be awesome. It adds some thematic connectivity, and I imagine it'd increase general player interest in both War and new monthly champs. Number 2, pool together some variation of all the global nodes that Kabam's ever released, and randomly choose which global will be applied to each war, for both alliances and all battle groups. So far, since the introduction of global nodes, a single meta node has always found its way to the forefront once it proves itself to be the most viable or difficult of the available options, and is consequently chosen by battle groups an overwhelming percent of the time, which contributes to stagnation, fighting the same stuff over and over. A randomized, automatically applied global node for the entire war, which could simply display on the match screen once a match is found, would force variety and yet again add strategy to the planning phase. This suggestion, much like attacker bans, combats redundancy, adds more strategy again, and would inject a level of excitement into the mode, opening up the match screen to see which global you've got to deal with, instead of knowing it's going to be Protect for the 18th war in a row. Imagine this. A Tier 1 alliance opens the match screen and sees they've matched a Tier 2 alliance and the global node will be Dodge, a now extinct node that gave small defenders a high evade rate. As a Tier 1 alliance versus a Tier 2 alliance, you can only ban 1 champion per battle group, and this season champions with the metal tag have ban immunity, so you can't ban Ghost. Do you use one of your 6 Quake bans in a matchup in which you're a heavy favorite, or do you ban someone like Corvus or Nick Fury instead? That's the multi-layered chess match that Alliance War could be. Number 3. Replace player-acquired items and boosts with a set item and boost allowance, per war, per player, that's immediately available to all players at the start of each war. Here are the specifics. For boosts, allow the player to choose 1 champion boost, attack or health, 1 class boost, special damage or power return and for 1 class only, and 1 silver boost, advanced power, invulnerability, or combat regen. Whatever boost the player chooses lasts for the entirety of the war, but they're the only boost that will have any effect. For items, give players 1 team revive to half health, 1 champ revive to full health, 1 champ revive to half health, 1 champ revive to 25% health, and 2 champ potions worth 50% total health. These 2 allowances would solve issues 4 through 5 mentioned earlier. They'd completely level the playing field between alliances willing to spend to gain an advantage and those who aren't. They'd again reward another layer of strategizing, which is the core of any video game competition, and they'd eliminate the player expense of war. They would accomplish the goal that Brian Grant has been vocal about chasing for over a year. They'd make Alliance War a quote-unquote competitive playground, which, doesn't that sound fun as hell? If you want me to bulldoze my way into Kabam and force these changes to Alliance War, like this video and subscribe. I'm pretty sure if I get to 10,000 subscribers, Kabam gives me the reins with no strings attached, since I'm an officer in my alliance. Also, start a discussion in the comments section. Do you think any of these changes are terrible? If so, it'll hurt my feelings maybe a little bit, but explain why. I'm really curious to know. And if you have more ideas on how you would improve Alliance War, comment about those too. I might just make a follow-up video featuring some of your suggestions, depending on the reception to this video. And lastly, huge shout out to Lizer for some key suggestions. My original idea was for champions to have no ban limits, which almost certainly would have meant the end of Quake in the top tier. Whether that would be a good or bad thing is certainly worthy of a debate, but limiting champ bans to 6 per season forces tough strategic decision making. And that's literally what war means. So thanks again, Lizer. Link to her channel in the description below. You're not being kind to yourself if you're not subscribed to her. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you on the battlefield.